In this exercise, you will learn how to add the Bootstrap grid to the web page that you previously created. You will also learn about and implement 4 other Bootstrap classes, the Order and Offset classes, as well as Jumbotron and List Unstyled. Open your project folder in VS Code and open the index.html file. Find the first div tag inside the header element and add the Bootstrap container class to it. Beneath that div tag, we'll add another div with the Bootstrap row class. Remember that the Bootstrap grid uses container, row, then column classes. So we'll add another div under the row div and give this a column class of col. This class has no breakpoint or number of columns specified, so by default, it applies to viewports extra small and up, which is the same as saying all viewports. And since it is the only column in this row, Bootstrap's auto layout feature will make it automatically take up the full width of the row. It's more or less the same as if we wrote col extra small 12, but we can just write col. We'll make sure to close the column and row divs after the closing h2 tag. Next, we'll go down to these 3 divs, indent them, and surround them in a div with the Bootstrap container class. We'll take this div and turn it into a row div. Then we're going to create 2 columns. For the first column, we're going to add these 2 column classes, col small 4 and col medium 3. This col small 4 class will make this column take up 4 out of 12 columns of this row for small enough viewports, which is 1/3 of the row. But when the viewport is size medium and up, this col medium 3 class will take over and make this column take up 3 out of 12 columns of this row, that is to say 1/4 of the row. Then for the second column in this row, we're just going to add the class col. Since we didn't give this class a number, it will just take whatever is left over after this first column, thanks again to auto layout. So for example, on small viewports, this first column spans 4 columns, so this second column will span 8 to add up to 12. I'll go ahead and apply the same Bootstrap grid classes to the following 2 sets of divs in the exact same way. Notice that this first column was given a number for small and up, but not for extra small. That means that for extra small viewports, this column will, by default, take up all 12 columns of the row, and this second column will get bumped down to stack vertically. We'll take a look at that in action later. In the footer element, there are 3 div elements. We will turn these into 3 columns that are in the same row. We'll start with a container div, then a row div, then we'll turn these 3 divs into columns. This div will span across the 4 columns for extra small viewports, which is again a third of its row. And for smaller up, it'll span across just 2 columns, or 1/6 of the row. To this second div that wraps around the social links, we'll make it half the row for extra small viewports and 5 out of 12 columns of the row for small and up viewports. Then for this third div, we'll make it take up a third of the row for small and up viewports, and by default, it will take up the full width of the row for extra small viewports. We have now set up a responsive Bootstrap grid. Let's take a look at it by starting up the project through the Bash terminal with the command npm start. We can test the responsive behavior through the developer tools or simply by changing the window size. See how the columns change at different viewport sizes, and notice how they become stacked at the extra small size. Now let's try out a few more Bootstrap classes. Bootstrap has a set of responsive order classes that allow you to change the order of columns in a row without actually changing the order in the code. Inside index.html, in the main content rows, we'll reorder the first and third divs. For the first main content row, find a column div that contains the h2 element, discover and review. To that divs class, add the class order small last. This will only apply to small viewports and up. Apply this order class to the third content row as well, to the column that encloses the text Our Community Partners. And now it should look like this in your browser. Yet another way to manipulate the Bootstrap grid is through the offset class. With an offset class, you can force the column to move to the right. Within the footer, locate the column div for your list of links. It should currently contain the column classes col4 and col2. Add the class offset1 to it as well. And now you should be able to see in your browser that it's been pushed over to the right. A Bootstrap Jumbotron component is used to call attention to a section of the page that shows key messages. Add the Jumbotron class to the header element in order to turn it into a Jumbotron. And for our last class, we're going to add the list unstyled Bootstrap class, which simply removes the default list styles. Go ahead and add this class to the UL start tag in the footer to remove the default bullet points for the unordered list.